So the very first home in the United States sold as an NFT, and the Bored Ape Yacht Club, one of the most prestigious and one of the biggest NFT memberships to be a part of, is valued at over $5 billion. So what's going on in the NFT community? I want to talk about the news that's kind of unfolding, and then I want to talk about some of the projects, show us whether we're in a bull or a bear market, and then I want to take a look at the biggest projects because, as Gary Vee says, 95% of the projects are going to fail. It is very important to understand that most projects will not be around. The way you look at things really matters. And then I want to talk about upcoming projects, but that's going to be more towards the end. Right now, we're just going to talk about the hot topic and news in the NFT, the Metaverse, and crypto world right now. One of the biggest things is that Bored Ape Yacht Club, which is valued at $5 billion, which had its team finally revealed in docs by BuzzFeed, which was a huge deal that the NFT and crypto community gave BuzzFeed a lot of backlash for, was overturned recently by Azuki, which has sold over $300 million. One of the biggest reasons for this, they're actually revolutionizing the space, and they have a team of really top-notch, high-quality developers, which is why their mint, which was an ERC 721A, I believe, that implementation allowed people to save a lot of gas fees. And if you know anything about the NFT community, gas fees are a huge problem. And now everyone is copying that mint. So they could become one of the biggest NFT communities pretty soon, just because they're revolutionizing the space. They have a legit team with real quality experience and backing, and the vision and the roadmap for what they want to build is a real community, and they're really working hard at striving for that, but I'll go into that later. Let's talk about a few things that are showing up in the news recently in the NFT space. Coinbase, the NFT marketplace, is about to launch their platform pretty soon. The New York Stock Exchange actually filed for a trademark patent, I believe, for their own NFT marketplace. What this kind of shows you is that there's a lot of people that are moving into the space, and it's not just companies, it's not just high-tier tech workers from Facebook, from Google, from Apple. There's hundreds of billions of dollars flowing into the space, and there's companies like JP Morgan, the New York Stock Exchange, Bape. All of these huge companies are starting to enter the space because people understand this is where the future is. There's a saying where money flows, energy goes, and you just have to follow the money. And you can follow some of the biggest employees at tech companies like Google, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft. Not only are these companies looking to get in the metaverse, in the crypto and NFT space, their employees are seeing this opportunity, in a lot of the tech engineers, the smartest minds are getting brought into these companies, and the resumes of some of these people are ridiculous. So the first NFT home was sold, and this was over in Gulfport, Florida. This is very close to where I live, and I was watching this very closely. And I'm not going to really comment on the auction because there's a lot of things you could be said. Tracking the wallet, you can look into it, and it's not that it's sketchy or scammy or anything like that. Basically, I'm not going to talk bad about it because I think it is a revolutionary thing that's happening, and it's very important. And it's the same thing that's going to happen in the luxury and fashion space. See, with luxury and fashion, when you buy something like a Gucci $1,000 purse, or you buy something that's really high end and someone tries to sell it on a second marketplace, how do you authenticate that they actually own it, that it's actually real, it's a real thing? And that's where NFTs come into play. You can watch my other video, which talks about how an NFT is simply a contract. This is where it comes into play with the ownership of a house. It really makes the whole process a little more seamless. You can verify ownership through the NFT. And there's a lot of things that you can do in the contract and everything for the ownership rights. And eventually you could actually split it out amongst several people who want to go in on it. So that's going to be a big thing. And I think Proppy gets a lot of huge commendations for being one of the first to move this forward. And they're continuing it too. So they said they're coming out with another one already. The next thing is talking about Polygon, which raised close to $500 million of capital. The problem with Ethereum is the gas fees. This is why gaming is struggling to get into the space. This is why the Wildlife Foundation is, people are looking at the gas fees, the gas it's burning, and it's a lot of waste and it's a lot of spending and it's a lot of money that it really costs for an average person to spend an extra $50 to upwards of $100 to $300 just for a transaction fee of a JPEG. It's not practical, which is why platforms like Solana, Immutable X, like Polygon, and all these other platforms are very important, and that's why Polygon was able to raise $500 million. This is from major companies like SoftBank, Sequoia Capital, so it's something to pay attention to as we move forward, because there are some major NFTs that are starting to move into the Polygon network, such as Cool Cats is a major NFT coming out with Cool Pets, which is already launched, and their milk token, and that's on the Polygon platform. And so are other things. I know Tom Bilyeu's avatar, I think might be, maybe not. And then Snoop Dogg, something with his hoverboards and his avatar. So there's a lot of people who are looking at it because reducing the transaction fee is very essential for getting mass adoption to the space. It doesn't make sense to be spending this much money on transaction fees. It was great for, I don't want to say it's great, but it's going to be very important. So the other things to look at right now are that Nintendo is looking to get into the Metaverse, which is, they made their stake on that. And that comes on the back foot of people like Ubisoft who tried to get in. They're still trying to get into the space. You have Microsoft that's getting into the space already. Gaming and the Metaverse are going to be two huge things to pay attention to, because gaming is what's going to skyrocket this space, and it's really what the space is built for in a way. And that's why this is, looking at that space is probably one of the most important things, to see how it unfolds. In order for gaming to get into space, we have to look at stuff like Polygon, Immutable X, Solana. The average gamer cannot just spend $50 on a transaction fee for a skin. That's why people are looking at Polygon and other things. That's all the news that's going on in the NFT space. Now, I want to talk about, are we looking at a bull or bear market in the NFT space? And how does it kind of move with crypto and the regular stocks in the economy? See, when it comes to, and you can look at this on like OpenSea, or you can look at Dune, which has an OpenSea tracker, which tracks the volume. Over the course of the last 2 months, you kind of saw this negative correlation. As crypto was in a bull run, NFTs were down. And then when crypto was kind of in a mini bear market, when it was just going downwards, it was cheaper to buy Ethereum, which made it cheaper to buy NFTs, which made there be more volume. So that's going to be very important to see. But obviously, if there's things that happen, like people get locked up and they don't have as much liquidity, and interest rates rise and the economy goes into a recession, then that could kind of change how consumer buying behavior is. But it's going to be interesting to look at NFTs as an asset class and how it kind of responds to the different markets. And if, for example, like people thought Bitcoin and Ethereum have a negative correlation with stocks because it's a hedge against the dollar and inflation. When you think about it, it's like, well, yeah, but if money tightens and people have less to spend, they're not going to spend it on as speculative assets, which is why they tend to move in the same motion as of right now, looking at some of the charts. So the OpenSea volume right now has kind of been a little down, and crypto has now kind of been getting a little more pump up now that I think Bitcoin is now at maybe like 44,000. Yeah, 44,000, and Ethereum is 31,000. Well, 3,100 at the time of creating this video. As you see this incline in crypto, you might see this decline in the NFT market in the bear run. So it's going to be interesting to see how those two correlate with each other, and then how they correlate with the regular stocks, the dollar, the US economy, as an example. Let's talk about the projects in the NFT space. And we're going to look at first the projects that have launched, because this is going to give us a little history. It's going to give us a little information. We're also going to look at recently launched projects, so it's going to give us some data and sentiment on what's going on in the market. As far as like projects that I kind of focus on and I look at how they're doing, just because they've built their name, they've really established themselves. For example, like I'm going to put CryptoPunks in there, but it doesn't mean I think it's a great project, because the community is kind of not there. The founders are not really doing as much. It's hard to say if it's even really worth the money that you're buying into something like that. This is kind of just more as like a tier system. CryptoPunks is going to be around just because of cultural significance, being one of the first NFTs. So in the top tier, you have the Bored Ape Yacht Club and CryptoPunks. And then of course you have the Mutant Ape Yacht Club, Mega Mutant Ape, Serum, and all the other layers that go into the Bored Ape ecosystem. But then kind of in the next tier is VFriends, Azuki, Clonex, Cool Cats, Doodles, World of Women. Those are kind of what I look at. And then you could put CyberKong, the first iteration, Genesis, with them. But those are the projects that I look at and I see, okay, these have really built their name. They're really building and they have something tangible. The next ones that are kind of close to it, almost, I wouldn't even really say they're far off, is like Deadfellas, Hate Beast. You have things like Wolf Game, Neo Tokyo, Adidas. Those are kind of like your big projects, and those are kind of see what happens. Does the Apple, does the Microsoft start to emerge? Does the Tesla of those? For example, the Azuki is starting to emerge as a bigger project. When you look at those as a whole, and we look at the 24-hour volume, we look at the 7-day volume, we see kind of how the floor price is moving. We can see trends. That's why I look at those projects, because those are going to have the most volume and the most movement out of them. That's why it's very important. Now let's look at some things that recently launched. So we have Karafuru, Raid Party, Pixelmon, Tasty Bones, Lives of Asuna, which is a little more earlier in January, CO1, Oxia, Hate Beast, and a couple of those other projects that launched in January. Some of the projects in January, like CO1, Oxia Origins, Lives of Asuna, Hate Beast, you saw this huge rise with reveal and this huge decline, this huge drop, and there's only a few that are really still building. We can look at some of these and we can see the problem with a lot of these drops, and we saw this with Pixelmon, potentially with Tasty Bones, which recently just dropped, is that when you build up all this hype, you're building up this huge momentum, you're putting the project on this pedestal, you're getting it up to this huge price. And there's all this price action, this volume, this movement that happens at the beginning, which is why it goes up. Then it goes back down and it settles back down to what it would be its normal. And that's where a debate of, is it good? And is it good to have that much hype? Because once the hype dies down, some people get caught with the bag. You start to wonder, was it really worth buying into this project? For example, Pixelmon, which was selling at 3 Ethereum, which at the time I think was somewhere maybe near $9,000, and the project is still 6 to 12 months out. You may not get anything. Now, obviously, hopefully they build for the short term as well, so they keep people engaged, keep people involved. But now the price on that, I think, has dropped down to, 1.3 floor as a result. And then there's negative sentiment. People start saying, is it a rug? Is it a scam? It's not that it's a scam or a rug. For example, for Pixelmon, they just built up this huge hype before and it came back down, crashing down on them. And the same thing kind of happened with Hate Beast, which is why these projects really are going to have to look at, okay, how do I play with this scale of, I need to have a good launch. You don't need to raise tens of millions of dollars to have enough funding to build something, but I get the purpose of it because it is the big thing and you want it to look good. And then when it looks good like Azuki, more money flows into it and it grows from there. But then you start to ask yourself, okay, what are they going to build in the next 3 months, the next 6 months? to kind of keep their community engaged, around, involved. So that's going to be very important. And something to pay attention to is kind of see how some of these unfold, not just when they launch, but then also in the secondary market over the course of a couple months, 90 days, 6 months. And this is why it's very dangerous to buy on the secondary market on a launch if you don't get the mint list or the white list, which is a whole another issue that you have to have almost this full-time job working to get part of a whitelist, which needs to get fixed as well. It really makes you cautious, and that's why you have a lot of people who are like, I'm just gonna flip the project and then I'm gonna go back in at a lower price, but I'm gonna get my profit out, and then I can buy in at a lower price and I can stay in the projects I like. And that's why there's a lot of quote unquote investors who have that strategy, flippers, who move like that. It's very interesting to kind of see how that unfolds, because it's not gonna be always the best interest of the project to have this huge hype launch. Knowing all of this information, what are the industries that we have to look at for who's moving into NFTs, the metaverse, and crypto? So the top 5 industries that I'm looking at are gaming. This is bar none, probably the most important for the industry, because this is going to set the pace, set the rhythm, and it's really going to get mass adoption into the space. The space is kind of built for it. I really like gaming. I used to game as a kid, so I'm really watching this. But the thing that kind of has me kind of going, you see people like Nintendo, Ubisoft coming in, but then you see games like Creeps, Wolf Game, Ether Orcs, Axie, and these play-to-earn games. And yes, you can make a ton of money on something like Axie and even like Wolf Game, but from an actual game mechanic and gaming standard, it's very hard to believe a game like that is going to be around for 3 to 5 years. And that's going to be the interesting thing, is to see how some of these play-to-earn games actually become a game, not just something you're just farming for money. And that's going to be very important, because at the end of the day, if it's not a game, people won't come back and play it, and then you won't have anything to earn. And then people will just be selling off their wool. Eventually, that will drop to 0, and the game will be dead. Same thing with Axie and all these other games. So it's going to be very interesting to see who builds for a game first. Doesn't just build for these Web3 tokenomics play-to-earn systems, because that system is a little broken for the gaming industry. It doesn't last long term unless they focus on the mechanics of the game and making it interesting that people want to play. And this is where it starts to get interesting for gaming NFTs, is that you have people who are coming out with these games like Clementine's Nightmare, Pixelmon, Oxy Origins, Big Time. And these things, a game takes anywhere from like 6 to 12 months, even 36 months to develop. You have people who buy in at $3,000 or $10,000. You have to keep them engaged and make their investment worth it for 3 years. And that's going to be very interesting. That's why I'm very bullish on things like Last Expedition, which doesn't have an NFT. It doesn't have a token as of right now. It looks like they're just building the game. And that's something that I think Nintendo and Ubisoft and these other gaming platforms are going to have way ahead of some of these others, is that they're going to build an actual game. Now, there are games like Big Time and Clementine's Nightmare that I think they're actually bullish for the game itself, and even something like Illuvium, watching to see how that unfolds. So gaming is going to be interesting. That's why you have stuff like Yield Guild Games, Seedify, which is being the launch pad, Merit Circle and Yield Guild, which are kind of like DAOs that are playing these ecosystems like Axie to earn and make money. And it's going to be very interesting. So that, the metaverse, and I'm going to kind of go fast because this video is already kind of going long. So the 4 other industries are the metaverse. Everybody knows about it. What this is going to be interesting to see is everyone talks about building a metaverse, and you have Sandbox and Decentraland, which are probably one of the first, probably not the best, and might not be around for 5 years on they, let's say, iterate on what they're building and really revolutionize, because these voxelated graphics, people are not going to stick with it forever. It's that it is early. I don't see people like Facebook, Google, Microsoft having the easiest time building their own metaverse because they're not Web3 native. It's one thing to say you're going to build it, it's another thing for the community to actually adopt it. It's going to be interesting to kind of see how these all kind of play out, because then you have other ones that are building like Network, Everdome, Chromia, Zilliqa, and something like Network. They're already building things in it, and that's why I'm a little bullish. Everdome is working with MetaHero. They're already building in it. Chromia, there's already games being built in it, like Mines of Delarnia, My Neighbor's Alice. Then you have Zilliqa, which is kind of like the new person on the block, and it's gonna be interesting because stuff like that, like Wilder World, the graphics are amazing and it looks really nice, but you have to develop it. It has to come to fruition. And that's the same thing with all these NFT projects. Basically everything that's going on right now is you're having this internet boom. You're having all these tech companies that are coming in, being built, all these startups. And at the end of the day, in the 2000s, there's only a few that really lasted. You had Amazon, Microsoft, Apple. Very few companies come out the other end. And that's where it's going to come with a lot of trouble, is that you have money being invested into NFTs, Metaverse, gaming, crypto. Just because something is being built, just because something has an amazing vision, an amazing roadmap, amazing graphics, it doesn't matter any of that. They might not be around in 3 to 5 years. So that's why it's going to be interesting to watch how some of that unfolds. And then the other is music, and we see this with, there's 2 people really revolutionizing it, well 3. There's a lot more than 3, but I'm gonna just name 3. You have Blau, who has his platform. You have Steve Aoki, who's building the Aokiverse with his Passport, who's revolutionizing how the music industry is gonna kind of move in this space. And then you have stuff like Snoop Dogg, who just acquired Death Row, and then got Warp Sound. He's talking all about Warp Sound right now. That's going to be another interesting industry. Art's going to be another big industry. And then the 5th is the luxury industry and fashion. I kind of bucket together. That's going to be another huge industry to look at. And it's because if you buy a Rolex, you want to authenticate it's a real Rolex. And a lot of the times, imagine if some people buy things like Rolexes or Birkin bags or these high-end luxury quote-unquote assets, and they may never use them. They're buying it as an asset. And with an NFT, you could technically keep the asset in a vault if you really wanted to, and then you only have to worry about the NFT, and no one can steal that. I mean, it could still be stolen, but it gives you room. So it's a way to authenticate that it's real, and then it shows proof of ownership. You can sell the NFT. There could be a decentralized vault where people store things like that, and then you're just trading the NFT, and the person has it if they ever want to get it. So that's gonna be interesting to see. Now, upcoming projects. Probably what everybody was waiting for. I'm gonna kind of go pretty fast on these because there's a lot of stuff going on in the NFT space, and kind of like I said earlier, you don't know who's gonna be around. As Gary Vee says, 95% of projects are going to fail. So what's important to understand is that it's not important to buy into every project. Watch the ones you believe in, and then if you can get on the whitelist, most of the time the whitelist is pretty profitable, but it does take a lot of energy. Now what you can do is you can watch it on the secondary market, see how it performs, see where the price starts to settle down to, start looking at the team, see how they execute on the vision and their roadmap, and don't just go in during the launch. This gives you an opportunity to get in at a cheaper price. Like there's a handful of NFT projects that I own. I'm just sitting on right now because I do believe the founders, but technically if I took this mindset, I could be bought in at a much cheaper price. Now you can obviously say it can always go upward as well, like Azuki did. Everything moves in an economy world up and down. In a market, there's always low and high entry points, and that's what you just have to ask yourself is how much do you want to be in the project, and how important is it? Are you going to be actively involved in the project? That's the other thing. So, and then the other thing with upcoming projects, so I have a grading system, and it's a lot more extensive. Now, the very first thing you have to look at when it's a brand new project is just basically, what can you figure out? You can look at the art, you can look at their social media, their following, their community. You can get some basic information from that. you might be able to look at the team, but usually there's not a lot of stuff built. There's not a website. There may not even be a Discord. The team may not even be docs, which is another huge thing, which is going to become very important, especially after like what's happening with Squiggles. People are saying things about Serial Club. I don't know, but that's another one that's kind of coming out. Being docs is going to be pretty important. But when you're looking at how do you grade a project, it's going to be very hard on the very early stages of a project. Now, as a project's launching and getting closer to launch, you can look at the things like utility. You can look at the team, the founders. You can look at the community. You can see things like the art and the significance it's going to have in the market and the impact it's going to make. And you can look at all these things and you can make a judgment off that and make your grading from there. There's a lot of factors that go into that. So there's a few projects that I'm very bullish on, like anime Metaverse, which I'm not a huge anime person. Actually, my older brother is a way bigger anime fan than I am. I appreciate the art. I understand the concept. I see the mass international appeal. I just understand it. When I look at something like anime Metaverse and I see the experience in their team, one of the founders is the ex-president of Burberry, Korea and Japan. I see that they've raised $200 million of funding. I see that they've had experience in the crypto space for close to maybe 5 to 7 years. They've built things, millions. They're bringing in people like they have a C-suite exec coming in, I think on their Project X, which is for my games. They have this huge team and they have this good vision, this good roadmap, a good community that they're trying to build. It's not just a hype community. And I'm very bullish on something like that because you can look at what they're actually trying to build, who's building it, and then you can see if they can make it come to fruition. So that's why I'm very bullish. And then another project, which I'm not even in the Discord on, but I'm still bullish on the concept, is Cypher Collider, which is from Collider Craftworks. This is a project that comes from a full gaming team of over 60 people with experience with the biggest games like Mortal Kombat, I think Assassin's Creed, and they're really building this first customizable avatar. And this is really important because there's nothing like it. And when you have this gaming ecosystem where people earn NFTs, the avatar is your identity. And you're earning these things, you can start to mesh it together. I see the concept. It's beautiful. And I think it's an amazing project. And the team behind it is legit. The fact that you can have a customizable avatar, it kind of lets you build the NFTs on top of it. It becomes an infrastructure at that point. Kind of like how Render is a project that could be like NVIDIA. You can look at these things that are being built as infrastructures, not just the gold rush, like NFTs, the Metaverse, and all of that. That's why I really like that project. Clementine's Nightmare, I like this because it looks like a legit game. Clementine's Nightmare is not just building this play to earn, they're building a play and earn, which is an interesting concept, that it's not play to earn. It's a game that you play and you can earn on the side. But that's not the focus. The focus on is the actual game. And they're building it in a way that kids can get into it and that it makes sense for them too. That's huge in the gaming industry. Now, the one factor, which kind of goes into what I was saying about gaming, is it's going to take a while to build the game. So that's going to be interesting to watch, to see how it unfolds. And then there's other projects like Invisible Friends, Mutant Shiba, of course, Betaverse, Storyverse. These projects have great teams, amazing art. There's a lot of hype in Invisible Friends. That I'm a little worried about, having a moment up and down, we'll see, or potentially. And the other thing is like, what are they actually going to build behind something like Invisible Friends, Mutant Shiba, Antonym? Antonym's a little different. They're merging physical and digital, so that's really interesting. Betaverse is by Bape. Storyverse, he's the guy who I think founded Zynga, which was Farmville, potentially. I might be butchering it, but I think. But that one is very interesting to me. Still kind of learning it. Still a cool community. And then there's other projects that are really big question marks. You kind of saw my top tier, anime Metaverse, Cypher Collider, Clementine's Nightmare. You saw my questionable the Invisible Friends, Mutant Shiba, Antonym, Baptiverse, Storyverse, which I'm still bullish on. But then my very questionable is things like Shadow Quest, which is taking the Azuki mint and making it even better, which is something really interesting. Again, they're building a game. I have to see if they can actually build a game, so that's an interesting thing. Then you have things like Imaginary Ones, which has a legit team, amazing art, but kind of feels like a Invisible Friends ripoff, but then not ripoff, second derivative. I really want to see what they build. They have a legit team, legit founders, so that's really cool. And I really do love their art, so Imaginary Ones is really cool to me. Tasty Bones was, but there's still question marks on it long term. And there's things like Serial Club, which I have no idea how to gauge at this point. Tasty Bones, I'm kind of in that same ballpark. I'm still think long term it can do well, potentially. But the team, it's not that they're scammy, it's not that they're shady or bad rug people. It's, can they execute on what they're saying? And that's what I'm gonna be interested in looking at. And then there's other ones like Suki, Soulzy, Kami Tribe, and then there's like, I'm watching 20 to 100 projects at a time sometimes. It's not that I'm paying attention to them every single day, but it's like, okay, this one's on my radar. Let's see kind of how it moves, how it builds, and let's see what happens. Those are the projects that I'm looking at. I'm curious what projects that have launched, things like Cool Cats, Doodles, Azuki, are you very bullish on? And what do you think is going to build for the future? And then I'm curious, what are some of the upcoming projects I didn't name that you're really looking at, and why do you believe in those projects? So thanks for watching. This was a super long market video, but this is my first, and there was a lot that I wanted to cover. If you want to see more videos like this, if you want more information about what's going on with the NFT space, Metaverse, and how it's kind of moving, and then projects that are going in there, curious what NFT projects to follow, which ones are coming up, then like this video, subscribe for more videos like this. Thanks for watching.